Hello, this is Daniel, and I'm going electric for the average person. Coming to you today from Provincetown, Massachusetts, all part of my 30,000 mile trip around the United States in a Tesla Model Y. Come along for the ride, and let's see how the car has held up over all those miles.
This will be a comprehensive video organized into a number of different sections. Take a look at the timestamps here and feel free to jump forward to the section that's of most interest to you.
A little bit about me and my beloved blue Tesla Model Y, which I refer to as Blue Lightning. I picked up the car in October of 2020, and I have since driven 20,000 miles around the United States. That's taken me from San Francisco up through North Dakota, down through Wisconsin, into Texas, all around the Deep South, into Miami, up through West Virginia, and then Delaware, and then back to Chicago, and then up to New England, and down the coast now. And I'm going to be making my way back to California through the southern route through New Mexico and Arizona. So I'm definitely putting some miles on this car. Now, I did do a 13,000 mile review, which you can check out. It's got a whole bunch of good nuggets in it. So this video is going to be structured in the same way. In that video, I started with a review of the exterior, then the interior, then any service and support that the car's had, efficiency and range, and then what I hate and what I love about my Model Y. This video is also going to have an extra section, which I'm going to start with, which is accessories and modifications, which may influence my opinion of the car. Let's get started with section 1, accessories and modifications. And before we begin, I am speaking to you from the parking lot of my hotel here in Provincetown, Massachusetts. Hey, it's a little quiet, so let's do it. Also, I have eyes. They work, but they are a little sensitive to the sun, so that's why I've always got my glasses on in my videos. And if it looks like I'm reading, it's because I am, and I've got my notes right here. All right, let's jump into accessories and modifications. I'm going to mention the accessory or modification, and then I'm going to give you a thumbs up rating, thumbs down, or meh, or something in between. Number 1, paint protection film and ceramic coating plus glass film. This was done about a month and a half ago in Illinois, in St. Charles, outside of Chicago, by Rush Automotive. That's going to be a giant thumbs up. Next, mud flaps by Tesla. Put those on about 2 weeks ago. So far, thumbs up. I drive a fair amount on dirt roads all around the country, so it's been really helpful. Next, road and wind noise reduction kit by RPM Tesla. I made a video about that, and you can check that out. So far, it sounds like a big thumbs up. The kit just addresses noise coming in off the door. It doesn't address any noise coming in off the windshield or the seals around the windows. That would be a Tesla design issue or flaw, depending on how you want to look at it. But definitely a thumbs up on that so far. Sunshade for the roof and windshield, also by RPM Tesla. I installed that recently. I'm not in the height of summer yet, but it seems to work as well as any sunshade could. And also I have a big, beautiful bald head that feels all the heat coming in off that beautiful glass roof as we're getting closer to late spring and summer. And I've definitely noticed a reduction in that heat coming in on my head. There were times when I was driving where I really had to wear a hat, either because it was so bright in the car or because my head was just getting a little warm. I think there's so much UV protection film on that glass that I don't have to worry about sunburns like you never do in cars. But you definitely get that heat, and this roof sunshade seems to have been doing pretty well at reducing that temperature in the car. Next, I got the sunshade for the Liftgate, produced by Tesla. Seems pretty straightforward. It's just like the windshield or glass roof sunshade, and I'm happy with it. It's pretty dark. I really have to use my side mirrors and those cameras to see what's behind me, but it does seem to reduce quite a bit of the energy coming into the car. USB hub by Jetta Products that goes in the center console and gives you a couple extra ports, and also lets you hide your Sentry video memory chip. Seems to be working pretty well. You put it in. It wasn't super easy to install because you have to line up the ports perfectly, but it does what it says what it does, and it works pretty well. Next up, hand vacuum by Baseus, I think is the pronunciation of the company. You know, this one's gonna get a thumbs down or a giant meh. It really should be called a dust vac. If you want something that's going to pick up real dirt or particles of sand or something, you're going to have to get a shop vac that you can plug into the car. Next, a tire pump by Teromas. That worked really well when I was in Miami. I actually got a flat tire by driving over a razor blade, and the pump was able to inflate the tires really well. Unfortunately, the razor blade resulted in that tire getting flat immediately after I pumped it up. But hey, it worked. And then I've also been able to use the pump to make sure that the air pressure in my tire is good as I drive around the country. I have the 4-in-1 dog seat cover by Okmee, I guess is the name of the company. I love this thing. I would recommend it to anybody, whether you have pets or not. I don't, but I do throw all of my suitcases and crud in the back of my car. I really do beat up those back seats with all the stuff I'm traveling with, and my back seats are in pristine condition, specifically because of this back seat cover. If you don't get this one, do get some related type, because if you've got those white seats, it's going to keep them in beautiful shape. Section 2, the exterior. I've had some minor dings and scratches on the car, but really nothing out of the ordinary. I did mention that the back doors got a lot of punishment before I got those mud flaps put on, and I'm hoping that that kind of greatly reduces itself as a problem. Beware of jewelry. I was washing my car one day. I wear rings and I wear bracelets and whatnot. I think they're quite lovely. I was washing my car with my careful microfiber cloths and all the rest of it. I just ran the cloth along the back of the car, and one of my rings or my watch just caught on that back gate. I have like a 5-inch long scratch in the back. I was so sad about it. Take off your rings, take off your bracelets, take off your watch. If you've got a belt on, take that off. If you have pants with little buttons or snaps or anything that you're going to lean over your car and scratch it, take it all off. You either need to wear nothing when you wash your car, or like track pants or something super soft. Don't be me and scratch your car because you're trying to care for it and you end up wrecking it. On the driver's side trim, after one of those manual washes I did, it seemed to have discolored that black trim into this bizarro, dripping looking rainbow kind of thing. I've never seen anything like that on a car before. And then finally, those back doors, as I mentioned, were getting a whole lot of abuse from rocks and pebbles being thrown up off the highway, presumably off my front wheels. But when I took the car in to get the paint protection film and the ceramic coating applied, I don't know what those brilliant people at Rush Automotive in St. Charles, Illinois are doing, but it looks like they repainted my back door. I know they didn't. They work some magic. Those back doors look gorgeous, and then they put on that ceramic coating. It looks phenomenal. I'm so happy with their work, and I'm so happy that it appears they were able to do some touch up on those back doors, because the exterior of my car now looks really great. Little pro tip, if you are buying a Tesla, and maybe any car, I guess, for that matter, and you're thinking about getting paint protection film applied and a ceramic coating, do it as soon as you can, because your car is going to be punished the more you drive. Section 3, the interior. The interior is in really good shape, all things considered. I'm at 20,000 miles now, so I do see that piano black center console getting a couple scratches on it. Apparently all the new Model Ys are coming with a matte gray slider rather than the pop open and closed piano black. Doesn't bother me. I don't stare at it. I do have a microfiber cloth that I use to get fingerprints and whatnot off of it and dust, but that would be pretty minor. The white trim inside the car still looks great. I'm pretty cautious with it though. You know, I do treat the interior of this car in a pretty gentle way. As for the white seats, I love that I made this choice. I love this white interior. I look at it all the time and I think it's gorgeous. The white seats are still in great shape, and I'll show a couple video clips here. You're gonna notice some sort of black discoloring. It looks like black shadowing on it. That's just an artifact of the camera, apparently, that sensor being overloaded in the bright sunlight coming off those seats. It doesn't look like that in person. These seats still look really great, but I do protect them. So if you're gonna get a white interior, you really should consider getting a pet seat cover. I put a towel down when I throw stuff on my front seat. you do have to treat these seats a little bit preciously if you want them to last a long time. The other thing is blue gene transfer. In my 13,000 mile video, I didn't have any of it. Around 17 to 18,000 miles, I noticed the very left side of the driver's side seat, right where I get in and out of the door, appears to be getting some permanent blue gene transfer stain. It's light, but even though baby wipes will clean the total interior of this car really well, there's really nothing I haven't been able to clean up off these white seats. And trust me, I've gotten them pretty nasty. That blue gene transfer is in its own league. So if that's the kind of thing that's going to really bother you, you really should consider not getting the white interior. But what I'm seeing right now is it's just on that part where I get in and out of the car. I never see it other than when I open the door. And if I don't stand there and stare at that part of the seat, I really don't even see it. I don't even think about it. The only other thing with the interior is the passenger side seat belt adjuster mechanism rattles pretty crazy. I'm going to play a video here of it. When I schedule my next service and support appointment, I'm going to have them take a look at it. I actually have to drive with the seat belt pulled out around the headrest, and that bizarrely seems to get rid of the noise, but it's kind of silly. I mean, if people get in the car, they would have to pull the seat rest or the seat belt around that seat rest, or I have to take it off for them, or I just look kind of dumb if I'm driving around town and I've got this seat belt around my seat headrest. I mean, I shouldn't have to do that. Section 4, services and support. In my 13,000 mile review, I did mention a couple things that I had addressed in my first service and support appointment. That was the power assist brake assembly unit rotor thing that broke. That was very inconvenient. Took 2 weeks to get taken care of, but that was kind of holiday and COVID and all sorts of stuff. So I'll give Tesla a pass on that one. And then also a tire rotation. And lastly, I reported that my windshield makes excessive noise. One other thing that has cropped up over, like, I suspected it a couple thousand miles ago, but since I'm driving my own car and I'm not standing on the side of the road, it was kind of hard to confirm. But it sounds like my back suspension or the struts are starting to rattle. And from what I've read online, that can actually be somewhat of a problem. So I've definitely made that service and support appointment and brought that up as the primary topic to get reported. I'm going to talk about that in more depth in the hate and love section at the end of this video. Section 5, range and efficiency. Interestingly, after I got that brake component repaired a couple months back, I was immediately getting a 20% improvement in my range. And I actually was having some real range problems back in the day before that thing broke and I knew that there was anything wrong with my car. Now that that's been fixed, I feel that my range is really good. I get an average of 300 watt hours per mile, which you could convert to 3.3 miles per kilowatt. For all of my metric viewers, that would be 186 watt hours per kilometer, or 5.36 kilometers per kilowatt hour, if I've done my math right. Now, if you take 3.3 miles per kilowatt and you multiply that by 72 kilowatt hours, which is the capacity of the battery, well, it's really 75, but apparently you only have access to 72. If you multiply those numbers together, that's going to get me an average range of 237 miles at a theoretical 100% charge on the car, which would be 381 kilometers. The reality of an electric car is you are never going to go from 0 to 100%, just like you never go down to 0 in a gasoline car, because by definition, 0 means you're on empty and you're stuck on the side of the road. Also, to maintain proper battery health, you really should try to keep your usage of the battery, based on everything I've read, between 20 and 80% on a daily basis. When I travel, and I do travel like permanently, there are times when I'm going to go through a stretch where it doesn't seem to be either some supercharger or a third-party charger. I will bump that charge up to 90% and sometimes 95%. And I have come in some places in the single digits on my charge, which I don't love. Kind of freaks me out, but I've done it. In practice, you're going to take this number 237 miles per charge. And that's really me driving on average, probably between 65 and 75 miles an hour. You're going to take that 237 mile number and reduce it by 20%. And that's really what you're working with on a daily basis, which is in practice 180 miles. And that's fine because there are superchargers everywhere if you're doing long distance driving. And if you're charging at home, you're almost never going to see a charger out on the road because you're just going to do it at home and you're always going to have energy. I will say though, the way that Tesla lists their miles on the website for this car is not totally on the up and up. That number, I think it's like 326 miles, is really based on driving 55 miles per hour. You're not going to see anything close to that if you're in the 70 to 75 plus mile per hour range. You're going to see at least 30% taken off of that number with regular driving, like I just mentioned. But the slower you drive, the more range you get. So if you're in a pinch, you're just going to have to slow down. But you slow down 10, 20, 30 miles an hour if you're in desperate need of electricity and range, and you can just go really far. I mean, it's insane. If these cars drive at 40 miles per hour, they'll like go to the end of the universe. It's pretty crazy, but you bring it up. This is just basic physics. You bring it up to 70, 80, 85, 90, and you're gonna see your range go real down. So you better hope that there's a supercharger nearby if you've got a lead foot. Lastly, there are a couple things that I've noticed that really hit range. Now, I would have thought that turning on the heater in cold weather or the air conditioner in hot weather would torch my range. I didn't really notice that to be the case. I mean, I see maybe a 20%, 10 to 20% penalty with that. And you add that on top of Tesla's fake range numbers, and really, on really cold days, you're at like 50% of advertised range. But in practice, if you ignore Tesla's fantasy numbers on range, you're only down like 10 or 20%. What has really affected my range, which I was not expecting at all, is really heavy rain and water on the road. And I imagine snow would be the same, especially if you mix that in with wind. That can really torch your efficiency and range. Like, there have been days where I've been stuck in really heavy weather and I'm seeing like 40% reduction in my range. So I wouldn't worry too much about super cold weather, although everyone knows that's going to hit your range. I would worry about impending calamitous rainstorms and you driving around. If you're going to be in one of those storms, you better make sure that you've got your superchargers all planned out, that you're charging up as frequently as you can, or that you've got level 2 chargers at your hotels or wherever you're staying along the way. The first time I learned this, I didn't think I was going to make it to my destination. So don't be me. If the weather's bad, plan appropriately because you're going to see a hit. And for the final section of this video, what do I hate and what do I love about my Tesla Model Y? I'm going to start with hate. And I'm going to mention that in my 13,000 mile review video, I gave Tesla a little bit of a get out of jail free card because I didn't even use the word hate. I thought that was a little extreme, but I've since changed my mind. There are a couple things I hate about this car. And let's begin. And they'll probably bleed straight into love. I hate that I spent $50,000 of hard-earned money on a car that, in my opinion, has been manufactured in a subpar way. The other thing that I'm really starting to not like about this car are some of the squeaks that have popped up. I'm gonna organize a service and repair session when I'm down in New York for a couple weeks. You know, I've been on the road so long that it's really hard for me to get any service and support because I'm like nowhere for long. The suspension, or the back of the car, I'm not sure where it's coming from. I think it's a suspension. When I go over bumps, it squeaks like a cheap mattress in a house. It's getting pretty embarrassing. Let's take a listen. Did you hear that? Setting up my phone along another road outside Provincetown now. Okay, now it's time for the real deal squeaky mattress. Or is it more like rattling keys? I have concluded that I have earned this through great cosmic payback because I used to make fun of people with squeaky cars. I'm now one of them. Again, I hope I can get that repaired. Other than that, what do I hate about this car? I don't hate anything about this car other than those three big things. And I think that's what I hate the most, because it seems like Tesla kind of goes big on its manufacturing defects, but then it also goes big on the other side of the spectrum, which is the electrification of the automobile. I love that this car's batteries are probably the best in the entire industry. I love that the drivetrain and the electric motors in this car are probably some of the best or the best in the industry. I love the way that it all comes together. I love that this is a performance car. I love that I hit that accelerator and I punch it and this car just goes and blows off everyone's doors. And I don't even have the performance version. Like, I can't even imagine how amazing that would be. So I love so much about this car. I love the interior. I love the white seats. I love the simple design. I love the exterior. I love the way it all comes together. I love the way it drives. I love this car. But at 20,000 plus miles, I also hate this car. And the good news is, with a couple service and support appointments, I know that that hate can be eliminated. And speaking of service and support, I am in New York City this weekend, Brooklyn to be exact. I am walking from downtown Brooklyn to the neighborhood of Red Hook, which is where the Tesla service center is located. As mentioned earlier in the video, there are a couple things that I wanted them to take a look at. One was going to be that squeaky seatbelt mechanism. The other was going to be the seals around the base of my windshield. The third thing is going to be a tire rotation, and they said they didn't want to do it because they said all the tread on my tires are bare and I need to do a tire replacement. And that quoted at something like $1,400 to $1,500. I nearly died. I haven't owned a car in 27 years, so all these costs are like pretty new and freaky to me. I gotta look into that one. And then lastly, that squeaky suspension or rear struts business. Interestingly, when I dropped off the car last Wednesday, Tesla was really nice because I told them, I was like, hey, you know, I'm gonna be in town for like a week and a half. You guys can keep my car as long as you want. Why? Because have you ever parked and paid for parking in New York City? Do you know how expensive that stuff is? So Tesla was actually, I loved it that they were really cool. They kept the car for something like, I think it's been 5 days now. That saved me a lot of money. Thanks, Tesla. And then the other thing, they gave me an Uber credit, which you activate through the Tesla app and then it links to your Uber account. I didn't think about it last week because I'm a walker. I mean, I'm walking right now. I rarely take Uber, even when I have the opportunity, because I just want the exercise. I clicked on that claim your voucher business late last night, early this morning. It's $600. So that was very nice of Tesla. Like, they did offer to take care of my transportation while the car was in the shop. So super cool. Welcome back. It's through the miracle of video editing. I'm no longer in New York City. Instead, I'm driving on autopilot down the interstate in Ohio on my way to northwestern Illinois. Last night, I spent the evening in that little finger bit of West Virginia that jets up between Ohio and Pennsylvania. Very interesting. Took a couple of videos there to see if the repair session on that back wheel was totally successful. I'll get to that in just a minute. But let me address a couple of the other issues that I had reported as part of that service and support request. The first issue was that rainbow discoloring along the driver's side trim, front and rear. Tesla cleaned that up with WD-40 and a microfiber cloth. Pro tip to all of us. The second issue was that rattling seatbelt on the right side. I swore up and down that it was from that box sort of mechanism on the B pillar. They said it was actually a misalignment where the seatbelt connects down at the base of that pillar down towards the bottom of the seat. Whatever it was, they readjusted it. I'm driving down the interstate. It's not making any noise. I love it. The next issue was Tesla's proposal that I replace all my tires because they think the tread is totally bare on them. I'm not completely convinced that's the case. I did stop and buy a tire tread gauge, which I will use at one of my upcoming supercharger stops. and see how much tread I've got left. Although, because as I've mentioned, I haven't had a car in almost 3 decades, I would love to hear from all of you in the comments below. How long do tires usually last? Like, how many tens of thousands of miles or kilometers do tires last before you have to replace them? Now, I know electric cars are heavier and you use all that torque, and as far as I've read, tires don't last as long in electric cars, but I would love to see what your experiences are. The fourth issue of the small issues was that wind noise that I kept reporting about the base of the windshield. I talked to one of the lead technicians at Tesla, and he gave me a whole bunch of information about the insulation of the car and why they make certain choices and the trade-offs of this and that. So that all makes sense. They did some refitting of the windshield cowls along the bottom. Now, Tesla mentioned that that's not usually a source of perceived noise in the car, but at a bare minimum, compared to how mine looked, and I think it was defective, their refitting or replacement, whichever it was, looks great. And again, driving down the highway now, I don't really hear that noise anymore. So I consider this issue fixed too. And now for the meat and potatoes about why I dropped off the car in the first place. It's that metallic sound that I hear clanking around anytime I go over uneven pavement. I went to go pick up my car around 11 a.m. and took it for a test drive around that part of Brooklyn, which has all sorts of exposed 1800s cobblestones. It's an excellent place if you want to hear squeaks and noises on your car. And I was driving next to some cars where you can kind of hear the ricochet of the sound off those cars, and I heard the noise again. So I drove around the block and dropped off the car again and mentioned that it had not been fixed. So I ended up chatting with a couple technicians who were brought out, and they jumped in the car, super cool dudes, and we went for another drive with the windows down. And I'm listening like this the whole time, and they're listening, and they had heard something. So we brought the car back, and I sat in the waiting room for a bit. And when they delivered the car back to me, I guess they burnished the wheel or brake or something. Again, I'm not an expert with this. Cleaned it out or whatever the term is. So I took the car for another test drive around that part of Brooklyn, and I heard the sound again. So I dropped off the car and chatted with a number of other technicians, and we each gave our perspectives on what was going on and who was hearing what, and it was all very polite. And I left the car, and they mentioned they were going to take a look at it again. So I showed up again at 6 o'clock, right before they closed, and ended up chatting with one of the lead technicians. Super awesome guy. We talked about all sorts of things Tesla related, and I learned quite a bit. Tesla, by the way, if you're listening, give everyone a spot bonus. They're awesome. These are the people dealing with some of your manufacturing issues, and they're going to help you bring the company where it needs to be. So reward them. They're super cool. So he jumped in the car and we went for a ride in a rainstorm. So there was some water on the road and whatnot, but we were driving in the rain with the windows down on those cobblestones and listening for any residual sounds from that back wheel. I didn't hear anything in the rain, so I considered it fixed. I dropped him off, and then I took my car back and then parked it in a garage for a couple days. I got back on the road, and as I mentioned, I was staying in West Virginia in that little finger, and I was looking for some roadways that I could like super check on it and set up my camera again. So I didn't really hear anything. You know, I did set up the camera. I thought maybe I heard something, but not really. And then you wonder if you're just imagining stuff. So that was last night. This morning, I wake up and I drive into Wheeling, West Virginia, and I had my windows down, and I'm driving next to some cars parked downtown, and then next to some concrete walls, I heard it again. And so I'm gonna take some video clips here of that noise again, and you can tell me if I'm crazy or not. So I don't think I'm crazy. So I don't consider this issue resolved. So I'm gonna have to do another service and support session somewhere in America as I drive back to California, because it needs to get fixed. It's not right. I still love this car. I hate this point, but I know Tesla can fix it sooner or later. I will keep you all updated in future videos. Thanks for watching, and I'd love to hear from you all if you have any comments or questions in the comments below. Take care.